Let's be honest, the UX design field is pretty big, and I don't mean in terms of just the number of designers out there. UX designers are expected to do and know a lot. One day they're scouring through data like some kind of number crunching analyst, while the next they're creating pixel perfect mock-up for their team's next big product. That's a lot of hats for one person to wear. Most UX designers though aren't actually jack of all trades. Some may be more artistically inclined, whipping up amazing mock-ups in the time it takes their coffee to finish brewing, while others may be more comfortable with the business side of things, like managing the product as it moves from one stage to the next and working with stakeholders to coordinate product requirements. This isn't something limited to individual designers either. More and more employers are starting to hire specialised UX designers, creating a well-rounded team of designers with different skill sets and inclinations, rather than hiring one designer and expecting them to be a master of everything. It's not really any different than, say, doctors. Would you go to the same doctor every time your body decided to act up? No. You'd go to an ophthalmologist for problems with your eyes, a dermatologist for that weird rash on your shoulder, and of course, everyone's favourite, a gastroenterologist, when friends and family have finally convinced you to get that colonoscopy you've been putting off. That's not to say that everyone has these options. Those who live in small towns, for instance, may only have access to a single local doctor for all their ailments, much like a small startup may only have funds to hire a single UX designer. But just like big hospitals have large teams of specialists, often big companies will have their own teams of specialised UX designers. UX specialisations tend to fall into one of four categories, commonly referred to as the Quadrant Model. The four quadrants include experience strategy, interaction design, user research, and information architecture. These quadrants aren't completely cut and dry, as you'll find there's some overlap between the skill sets involved and the roles required, but they're a good starting point for categorising the main subsets of UX design. Experience strategy is the most business-oriented of the four quadrants, as you might imagine from the word strategy. It's all about bringing together requirements from both the design and business sides of a project and creating a holistic strategy that works for the entire team. You can imagine the type of personality who'd be best in this role: a leader, someone with business savvy but who still understands the needs of the product. This type of UX designer needs to be able to hold their own in meetings with multiple parties, mediating needs across the board and creating a plan that works best for everyone involved. Sound a lot like a manager? You wouldn't be wrong. The role of the product manager typically falls under this quadrant, along with other roles like product lead and product designer. So if you're a business-minded UX designer with strong management skills, why not try looking for roles under one of these titles? If you didn't know what interaction design meant, you might think it was about interactions between people, setting up your two show friends, Rich and Ethel, on a date, for instance. And you wouldn't be too far off, only this time you're setting up Rich with his new Samsung Galaxy. Interaction design is all about creating seamless interactions between a system and its users. This could be as simple as a calendar app that reminds you of your upcoming doctor's appointment, to the complete Android operating system that controls your phone. Those who specialise in interaction design are whizzes at synthesising user research, business goals, and solid navigation principles into slick interfaces and intuitive user flows that people can use in their sleep. Some of the other roles commonly associated with it include interaction designer, experience designer, or even product designer. User research is a basic skill any UX designer should have. Your research forms the core of your designs after all. But as companies grow, a lot of them are finding the value of including someone devoted solely to research on their team, namely a dedicated UX researcher, which is great for those UXers who can't get their noses out of their facts and figures. UX researchers spend their days collecting and analysing qualitative and quantitative data from their users. This extra time can allow them to go beyond the typical interviews and surveys of most user research and utilise more intensive methods such as diary studies and contextual inquiries, both of which require more time interacting with their subjects. This quadrant can also be a good specialisation choice for those more mathematically inclined, as it often includes some data analysis and number crunching. While UX researcher is the most common title for roles in this field, you may also find ads looking for usability analysts or research analysts. Generally, anything with research or analyst is a good bet. The last quadrant will seem pretty unique if you've never heard of information architecture before. Sure, everyone's familiar with architecture, but what does that have to do with information? Quite a lot apparently, you just need to know where to look. Ever heard of a little something called library science? This is pretty much the core idea behind information architecture. In libraries, books are organised in a logical way that lets us, the book borrower, find that copy of Dante's Inferno so that we can write our paper that's due tomorrow. All those Dewey Decimal codes on the book's spines are just one example of information architecture in practice. Just like libraries, websites and apps need to be organised too. Those navigation systems you use to get around Facebook were probably designed by an information architect, or at the very least, a UX designer well versed in IA. Some other names for those organisational wizards can include data analyst and content strategist. Each one of the 4 quadrants represents an essential skill set for a UX designer. However, it'd be pretty difficult, if not impossible, to master them all. This is why most designers familiarise themselves with all the quadrants, but choose to specialise in 1 or 2 that best match their skills and interests. It's this kind of flexibility that makes UX design such an attractive option for people from all kinds of different backgrounds, and also what keeps it fun. After all, in a field where there's always more to learn and explore, how could you ever get bored?